There we go. Hey, Neela, it is so good to hear from you. Excellent video, girlfriend. I'm a history buff too, so it's always good to hear the kind of stuff you were talking about. I think I've always loved history. Even when I was a kid, I've always hung out with the elders, listening to what they said, taking it all in like a sponge. Once they realized that I wasn't there to demand any attention from them, they would talk about whatever they wanted to in front of me, which was fine by me. I learned a lot of stuff about our family history and about what was going on politically in the 20s and 30s and 40s. So it was neat. Even before, so from my grandmother, who, God, she was born in 1987. She used to talk about her family. She talked about coming from Texas to California in the sitting in the back of her family's covered wagon with her legs dangling off the side of the wagon. Very cool stuff. Um, I think part of my being a history buff also is I love to read. All three of us grew up just loving to read. Read pretty much every day and every night. I liked to read history as a kid and also fantasy. Hated reading about history in school. It was all so negative, all about slavery and genocide, and um, nothing positive about what my people on both sides had done. So no school history, thank you. But I did love reading. Who was it? Ishmael Reed. His book Mumbo Jumbo turned me on to some excellent political history kind of fantasy. His book Mumbo Jumbo, check it out. He treats jazz. The storyline is jazz is treated by the American government and the Christian establishment like a virus, like a disease. Um, the kids got hit with jazz and were doing the boogie woogie, and were acting too free, and they had to vaccinate the kids in the 20s, afraid that they would, you know, get this boogie woogie and like start shaking their butts and stuff. Very funny book. So check him out. Some of his stuff is said to be sexist, but so was Robert Heinlein, and I still liked his stuff. Oh, of course, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, um, Chinua Achebe, When Things Fall Apart. His books are excellent to read about back then, contemporary Africa, city life in Africa. And Nourudou Farhan, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Oh, and then the fantasy stuff. I loved March Percy. It's so sad to hear we lost Octavia Butler last year. Cut my teeth on Ray Bradbury, Robert Heinlein, Roger Zelazny, Jack Chalker. For me, anyways, while I was soaking up all my family history, I loved it. I think we were really fortunate. Ours is one of the few black families that have a pictorial history of our family members that goes back into the early 1800s. Both sides of my family were merchants and landowners, business owners. I've got African, Indian, white, and Mexican heritage, and we've been in the West Coast for generations. I can go back 7 generations. I mean, there's 7 generations of us. And then I remember in the '80s when the People's History of the United States came out. Ooh, it blew the whole history thing up for me in a totally new way. I was turned on to it by Lee Brightman, an amazing Dr. Brightman was one of the leaders in the American Indian movement, in the AIM movement. He was one of the brothers up on the biggest piece of graffiti we know, Mount Rushmore, carved into sacred hills. Talk about graffiti, tagging up something sacred. Um, he taught U.S. history at CCC in El Cerrito, and just taught it from a whole different perspective. Of course, from the native perspective, and also included world history in it. I loved how he tied U.S. history with what was going on in the world at the time, what was going on in Spain, and Africa, and the Ferdinand and even King James clearing the Spanish out of, and the Moors out of the area, out of Spain, when Columbus came to get money, and that affecting King James and how he had his version of the Bible uh, the Bible edited because he was so angry at the Moors. So it's interesting. World history is a trip. Definitely important to know about. Then later on, learned about history in Mexico and Central America, South America. Got into at 14. I started playing guitar and doing folk music. So I got into labor music and protest music, and that was pretty cool. I've been able to collect a lot of labor songs over the years, and I'd love to do a CD of old labor songs. I think we need to educate young people on labor issues and the whole divide and conquer issues, and how employers have been using race to break strikes and divide people in this country for years, and are still doing it. Anyhow, it's good to hear from you. Great video, sweetie. You take care. Bye bye. Come on.